What's up, everybody? It's your boy Nacho Jedi, and today I am here with Dilcia Guzman. She is a content creator and an actress. She does theater acting. If you all remember, she's also the girlfriend of my buddy Danny from the previous episode. If you haven't seen that one, check it out. An hour long of fun conversation. So if you didn't check that one out, definitely do. I'm glad to have you here. I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited. I know we're gonna have a lot of things to talk about, but I'm really excited to share a lot of my of my journey as an actor and just everything that has come along with it. And then I also do want to introduce a little guest over here. This is my lovely cat, Agatha, also known as Miss Aggie. She is going to be going into yeah. She wants to be tall. So she may go on and she would do this. Well, as you can see,
that's awesome.
She's named after Agatha Harkness from WandaVision, soon to be Agatha all along. Mm-hmm. And yeah, she just really fits that energy of just causing mischief and mayhem and chaos.
Now, I will say that I really did enjoy WandaVision. Yeah, I watched that whole thing. That was actually one of the few ones that I actually watched the whole entire show of. It's been a while, but they did a really good job with that show. I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah, especially with the homage to TV within it, and watching it with my mom, because throughout the pandemic, I was up in Victorville with my family because I was working at a retail store.
Awesome. That's exactly what I wanted.
Aggie, would you like to be part of this? Aggie.
That's fun. But yeah, during the pandemic, you were watching with your mother.
Oh, yeah. During the pandemic, I was watching a lot of movies and TV with my mom. It became kind of like this thing between us. It just kind of bond with one another because she's seen a lot of the performances I had as an actor, within the shows that I did in college and then post grad up until everything shut down again. We were able to bond over film and TV and just have that outlet. And WandaVision was one of those shows, especially as Marvel was getting showing their foray into the world of television. Well, I know they already had Daredevil, and then Luke Cage, Jessica Jones. They had all of those other shows on Netflix, but now working with Disney, all of those different things. Aggie, are you okay?
Trying to escape. It's where's the first? How do I get down in here? That's funny.
This is the first time she's ever done this. I am so... Agatha! What are you doing?
That's super funny.
I'm telling you.
This is why we love
Aggie!
She don't care either.
Okay, you know what? It is what
That's
it is. This is what I get for being here dinner an hour early. This is how she thinks. But as we were watching WandaVision, it was just one of those things that she's really started to enjoy because of specifically how each episode had an homage to the earlier TV shows, especially with I Love Lucy and Bewitched and even Brady Bunch. That's stuff that my mom doesn't remember growing up watching Honduras, because all the stuff that was produced in the US would show up in Latin America at least 5 to 10 years later. So she was definitely a little bit behind on the trends, but she still enjoyed it nonetheless. And it was just it was something that really piqued her interest. And then eventually, as it encompassed all of Wanda's grief and everything she was going through, especially within the Infinity Saga, and just where to go from that. That's what really drew in. But specifically, it was Agatha, where she was just oh my goodness, this is someone that has power and really wants to utilize this. We didn't know what was where Agatha was going to be going within the show, especially as she was hidden as Agnes, and And like my mom was just like so intrigued by it, and so that's part of the reason why her name is Agatha. I mean, that's her legal name, but she doesn't really respond to Agatha. She doesn't really respond to Miss Aggie either. The only thing she responds to is a bag of chips.
Nice. Yeah, and actually, I think a lot of people don't even go by their legal name.
I mean, I started going by my legal name. My middle name is Cecilia. So growing up, I was called Ceci by a lot of my family members, especially my tia. I am named after. Like my first name was inspired by my tia. But a couple of boys back in middle school ruined it for me when they were like, "Oh, sassy sounds like sexy," and they were like, they were being dumb. But like, I didn't appreciate that. So at that point, I was like, I don't care how many times people mispronounce my name. I'm just gonna go by Dilcia at this point.
Yeah. With me, like I'm a junior, so everybody called me Joelito. That's what everybody called me. They didn't call me Joel, or some people called me Junior, but it was really Joelito or Lito all the time. Just the way it is, especially when you're a junior in a Hispanic household. Gotta tell the difference.
Me and my siblings and us were named after another older figure within the previous generation. So like I was named after my tia. My sister was named after my mom, but she doesn't even go by my mom the same name. And so she was like, "Nah, I want the distinction." And then my brother's technically named after my dad, but he doesn't even go by that anymore. I'm the only one that goes by the name they were given.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry about that. Let me get another sip. That was kind of weird.
I mean, like, names are names, and whatever, like, people feel comfortable with, that's what, what they choose to represent themselves with. And that's what I definitely felt like with Dilcia, because it's not a common name, especially when you put it into, like, Microsoft Word or any other documents and stuff. The, like, red line would always appear and be like, "Oh, did you mean Delilah? Did you mean this?" Yeah. And, as I've gotten older, I've, like, really have, like, gotten more comfortable with it, and I've learned to claim it, because especially, like, the woman I'm named after, my tia, she was, like, really, like, such a big influence in, like, me kind of being myself and being outgoing. And she was really, like, one of, like, the other present mother figures that I had, because, my parents were so busy as we were growing up. And I'm really glad that I had someone that was present to help take care of me and my siblings, along with my tavo. Even, like, tavo, like, that's short for Gustavo. But, like, going back to my tia, like, I'm really glad that I'm named after someone that was there for my family.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah. I will say I'm glad I'd be named after my dad. My dad's a great guy. So Poppy, if you're watching this, hey, I love you. Hopefully I'm doing you proud, But so you're sitting here talking about, kind of finding yourself or being like your own type of person, type of thing. Would you say that also like kind of, I think I'm breaking up somehow.
It's okay. You're good.
So if that got you into, it happens, I'm even Ethernet connected, which is weird. I don't know why would I have issues, but I guess, my Wi-Fi is not as good as I thought it was. So trying to find yourself or, have that distinction. I know a lot of people that get into acting or things like that, they like playing like a different version of themselves, or they're very creative and they just like lose themselves in their own little world. What was it that got you into, trying to find that path and get into the path of actually being an actress?
Well, for me, when my sister and I were younger, this was around the time when I was about 3 or 4 years old, we did a lot of like play pretend. Specifically, there was this one point because like my parents would always watch like Primer Impacto or Univision or any of like, like the talk shows growing up. And so my sister and I, we kind of have like our own little version of like the Ceci show, and like we would pretend that like we're interviewing things. So we would like have our like plushies around. We would bring like one of the play tables in front of the door, because that was like kind of like our little like studio set up, and we would just make it pretend that we're interviewing the plushies and like telling all these great stories or telling about like something that happened on the news. And that was like part of our like like our play pretend and just like kind of like stepping into like the world of television in that sense, because that's what we were able to mimic. And in addition, we also like we would always play outside with our dogs and kind of like have our dogs join us along in the journey, because it was like the Air Bud movies, or like what's the other one, Lassie, the one where it's just like the dog is like, oh, in the Great Well, like mimicking that. So, you know, just kind of like making those great adventures. And then in addition, Disney movies. I remember having nearly like every single one of like the movies that came out during the Disney Renaissance on VHS. I don't remember where they are now, but we had them all on VHS, and my sister and I, we would constantly like rewatch them and rewatch them and rewatch them, and we knew how to like rewind the tape. We were so savvy with it, and we would just like go along and kind of like start building into our like play, you know, like our, you know, our playtime in that sense. And you know, I was just let Aggie be Aggie. But you know, like the more time that we spent just like using our imagination and building the world around us, like I felt really comfortable with the idea of play and the idea of like, you know, living within reality in imaginary circumstances. And I just got like really comfortable with that. And in a way, like it kind of gave me that sense of escapism, because even though like my parents, like they worked really hard and stuff, there were definitely a lot of hardships. I won't air everything out just because like, you know, that's my family's business. But, you know, there were times where, like, you know, like, if I really needed to, like, go and escape somewhere, I was able to use my imagination and play pretend.
Yeah, I, honestly, I'm kind of similar with that as well. That's my parents. I had little stuffed animals growing up, sat here, a bunch of little toy soldiers doing, like, a whole, you know, war, like, in my bedroom and stuff. Just having that creative outlet, you know, I felt like it definitely has, you know, changed me through my life as well, where you're a little bit more creative. You figure other things out to kind of solve problems now. Like, I'm not going into, you know, acting or anything like that, but it definitely helps me in my job as well to try to solve problems where you're like, why don't we just do it this way? And everyone's like, oh yeah, you know what, that makes sense. You're very smart. I'm not smart. I'm just kind of creative. You know, I'm thinking outside the box a little bit, trying to figure this out. But I use
like, yeah, especially if someone's like, you know, like constantly like approaching it in like a logical sense, or like what is the most like efficient way. It's like, why don't we just, like it'll just interject like my cat then and be like, why not this way? Right, Aggie?
Yeah. So fun. Yeah, and I feel like
my cat's always like always.
And I feel like the whole thing, like trying to like being creative and stuff, like it allows you to really think on your feet and, you know, be able to, you know, jump into somebody else's shoes like as quick, and probably gives you a little bit more empathy too, because you can experience somebody's, you know, life in a sense, you know, not always not going to be 100%, but you can kind of feel for them because
exactly.
You know,
for them, you can see where they're coming from. I've always like, I feel like, especially with a lot of things that happened for me growing up, and then even like, you know, kind of like always looking at like a character's journey with like watching movies, watching TV, or even like reading books. I always found myself kind of like immersing myself into what another person was experiencing and like looking at things from like that character or that person's point of view. Unfortunately, it's a double-edged sword, because like I have to watch movies one time for entertainment, but then from there on out, I view it as if like I'm that character. Like recently, like I've been like rewatching all the Mad Max movies because Furious came out, and specifically in Fury Road, like I find myself every now and then like kind of like trying to look at things from a different perspective. Like even in my last viewing, I was like, I want to try and see things from Nux' perspective. And then like it just gets even more heartbreaking because I'm like, I'm Nux. I'm experiencing all these things. Witness me.
Yeah. And honestly, I did the exact same thing growing up, but with Star Wars, you know. I felt everything that Anakin was feeling at the time, and I also felt like everything that Obi-Wan was feeling at the time too, especially in Revenge of the Sith. That's always the movie that myself
that's always
and Manny goes to. Yeah.
With like Anakin's going through, but then with Padme, it's just like, dang, like, girl, you're losing everything. I feel that. Not that I have lost, like, a republic to the Empire.
Yeah, no.
The ability to like raise twins, but it's like that feeling of like, okay, like here's family that you're trying to build, and then that gets taken away from you.
Mm-hmm. I will say Padme was one of the strongest characters in Star Wars, and she doesn't get enough credit for it. Very strong character, because she was always steadfast. She didn't like let things really waver her, no matter what was going on.
Yeah, she was like girl, like she was queen at 14. Like nothing's gonna stop.
Yeah, and I think that's why a lot of people liked her character as well. Obviously, because it's just Natalie Portman too, but just her character is just overall well written. But we can go forever with Star Wars, so I'm not going to continue to go down that rabbit hole, because that's one we won't be getting out of anytime soon if we do that. But going back to your personal experiences with acting, so how did you actually stumble upon getting into theater? Was it through school first, like high school and then college, or did you find like some sort of improv class, or how did that go?
So for me, I got into acting pretty late because where I grew up in the high desert, at least within my formative years, there wasn't really as many outlets for performing arts. If you really wanted to go and do things in the high desert, you had to go down to the Inland Empire. And that was for a lot of things, for work, for entertainment, even for like decent food. Like if you wanted to go out for like a nice, like to a nice restaurant or anything, it's like you had to go down the hill, which is a colloquial phrase that we have here in Southern California, where you would go ahead and take Interstate 15 going south through the Cajon Pass and then drive about like 40 miles out just to go experience things or like have like that experience. So like you can imagine it's like at least like for you on your side of the coast, like you're in the middle of like rural Florida and then you have to drive all the way out to Orlando to like have an experience.
Yeah,
very much like that same. Yeah, so like stuff like that, like my parents, especially with how busy they were with work and trying to like provide for me and my siblings, I didn't really get that much of an outlet to like express that as a child. But luckily, when I was in high school, I got involved with my high school's choir class, which then became like, being part of choir and vocal ensemble. And was really like kind of like refining my skills of like singing with like a group and singing, and just like blending and, learning the foundations. And my teacher at the time as well, she recommended me for private voice lessons with a friend of hers, Dr. Craver, who, oh my goodness, like that woman, like she opened a whole like Pandora box of things that like I'm able to use to this day, like especially like resonating and like not trying to like force everything from your throat and like singing like within the vocal cavities of your face. Like it's a whole anatomy, and you like kind of have to like navigate like where you're using your voice and how you're using it in order to like get like the best performance and the most healthy performance possible. She really gave me like all the best foundations there, because when my mom did try to put me into lessons when I was a kid, a lot of people just anticipated you to already know like about music and know about like, reading sheet music or like reading the guitar staff or knowing all these things. I didn't know that. And then they were like, I don't really think that your child is capable. This is like, well, you're not teaching me, you're expecting me to already like have this. I'm here in this lesson to learn, but you're expecting me to know that already. And I'm like, no. I think it was just a miscommunication there too, is because I'll be honest, most of the other teachers and stuff, they kind of like looked at me and they're like, oh, brown kid, no one really wants to get into performing. We'll see about that. But I'm really glad that Dr. Craver like took a chance on me, and she was like, okay, no, we're gonna work on like honing your voice, honing your skills. And even though I really didn't get as many solos to choir, I was like, no, you know what? I have a fair shot at this. I really want to go ahead and get into theater. And so I ended up applying for like a multitude of different performing arts schools across the country. I got accepted into a lot of programs here in Southern California, like Redlands, UC Irvine, also another one. UC San Bernardino. But then the one that I ended up going into, AMDA, College of Conservatory Performing Arts, that was the one where I felt like I was able to at least like immerse myself within like people that are working as actors and then also teaching. And granted, like I felt like a fish out of water, like going into performing arts school, because then here you have people from different backgrounds, from different parts of the country and different parts of the world. Even though we had like a lot of international people there, and you know they've been doing like theater much longer than I did and stuff. And I just, you know, sometimes like the imposter syndrome kicks in, where you're just like, am I just as good as these people? I'm able to like bring stuff to the table, and just like, when is it going to be my turn? It's like I only knew prior stuff. But then, like, as I spent more time and like working on my craft, working on making connections, which is everyone looks at connections as like, oh, like please meet you, I'm this person. Genuinely, connections are like the friends that you make in school, and you know the people that you meet along the way. Those are the true connections. And like I was able to like, you know, have like a good core group of friends that I still talk to this day, like even 5 years after graduating. And then we're all like connected and we're helping one another within the industry and even just like living out, you know, in LA as actors. I'm really glad that like I was able to establish that community, and then I was able to like use all of those different skills in order to do some theater out in the high desert and do some out in the Inland Empire, and eventually work my way towards doing some shows out here in LA and Ventura County.
Yeah, and I feel like the whole imposter syndrome thing, it happens like in everything. Like you can be in any job and feel like you're an imposter because there's so many people that you're surrounded by. You're like, why are they so much better than me? Like, why am I even here? Because they're definitely levels above me, and it's like you kind of just don't feel like you belong.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that was like very prevalent. But then ironically, like a lot of the people that I knew back at school were like, they would always get into like the shows and the programs and stuff. A lot of them are not working as actors or even like making the attempt now. And then they have the nerve to be like, oh, the industry is so hard. I only know like one person, like that, at least from my graduating class, that like, you know, they have been like consistently using their degree every single day, and they've been making the connections and, you know, just constantly doing theater, and like I'm so proud of them for that. But other people, like they're just like, oh, like, you know, they peaked too early. So I'm really glad, like even with the imposter syndrome, like part of me was just like, you know, like I still have time to grow. I still have time to work on myself. I still have time to, you know, basically like continue working on my craft. Just because I graduated with my bachelor's, that doesn't mean like I'm done learning. I am like looking towards getting my master's in the next couple of years. Mainly because like with teaching right now, you know, like I really want to go ahead and continue using those skills and teach the next generation, but also like teach myself within education, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's like not everybody is going to sit here and like be this big time, you know, actor, actress at a young age. You know, no one's out here like, doing that frequently.
And even looking at like how fame like really like consumes some people and stuff, like I love performing, I love doing that and stuff, but even like when my Mirabelle cosplay went viral on TikTok and stuff, I was like, I don't know how to handle this. And then like it was just like so much like carry on at one time, and I was like, I'm just here like trying to, you know, like do what I love. But then all of a sudden it's like you kind of have this weird responsibility to like be a spokesperson for things, and you're just like, it gets so daunting to like go, like especially now with like social media, to go from like nobody knowing you to like nearly everybody recognizing you on the street. And it's like, luckily it doesn't happen as much anymore, because like with TikTok I did have to go ahead and like step a little bit back because I didn't want any of my students recognizing me on social media and then trying to interact with me in that sense, because I was like, I'm your teacher. This is the boundary. I'm trying to maintain this and be as professional as possible. Like, who I am online is not the same person, even if I am in cosplays. I'm like, it's a completely different world. I don't want you guys to like have the line get blurred.
Yeah, and that's something that people need to work on, is getting that distinction between like this is who I am when I'm doing the things that I love, like the fun things on the side, whatever, and this is who I am at work, like it's not going to be the same. And that's the same for me. You know, if I go to work and I have people that I work with watching this podcast, or, you know, seeing, like, heard me stream or whatever, it's completely different when I'm at work. You don't address me as Nacho Jedi. You're gonna address me the right way.
When I'm at work. Any of my students call me by my first name, I'm gonna be like,
yeah,
okay. No.
Yeah.
Or even like as a performer, because like there have been a couple of shows that I've done where it's like, like a couple of my coworkers be like, oh my goodness, I'm so excited to see this. I'm so excited to see you in parade, and they're like, that's a heavy show. That's a heavy show. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Or even like Rent. I'm like, it's like I haven't really done anything that's like for all ages. Because like what I do as an actor, I really want to like explore things that are like a little bit like more heavy and like stuff that like, you know, that's like a bit difficult to digest or like, you know, consume all at once, like, make you think. That's what like I really gravitate towards, and those are the stories I want to tell. But of course, like, you know, like I really like the things that I do as an actor and stuff, it's not going to be like connected to, like, I'm not trying to get like all my little pools of, or like the little hats of myself. I don't want to like put all the hats in one pile.
Yeah. And that makes sense. You don't want to do that. You want to be as diverse as you possibly can and be able to really do whatever you want. And I know a lot of people have that issue. I know a lot of people actually have that issue where they get stuck in one specific like role or genre, and they just stay there forever. And I feel like that can't possibly be fun all the time, unless that was the one that they chose and they're like, no, I just love this, so I'm going to stay this way. But I feel like definitely the more diverse that you are in your craft, you definitely will have more opportunities to.
Yeah, you definitely have more opportunities. You have more range, and I mean, like for some people, if like that's one way to make like steady income, and they're happy, you know, staying within that lane, like more power to them. But like I definitely like, especially like within the cosplay, because when Mirabelle went super viral, like I love Mirabelle the Bits and Pieces. I really do feel like, even like if you've seen the movie, she's very close to me in personality, where I'm like, should I be asking for royalties? But, you know, like I've been cosplaying her and like performing as her for princess parties for the past 2 years. And like, I definitely want to have that distinction between.
I have a photo of that too. Let's see. Let me pull that up. I know I have a picture of that. Let me see. No, I have a couple pictures. Let's see. This is one. We can talk about this one. See if it pops up. There we go.
Oh, I love this one. Okay, so this one was taken at an event that I worked with a couple of my other Party Princess friends. Our lovely Luisa, that is Sarah Cruz. We stumbled upon her just because like we had so many parents, like they were like, oh my goodness, we want Mirabelle, now we want Isabel, can we have Luisa too? And like we've done a good handful of parties together. She, along with Camille, who is our lovely Isabella there, they both work at Knott's Berry Farm, and they, you know, like they're working within the different attractions there, and you know they're really good at what they do with engaging with people and like keeping the story going along. That was such a really great story, because like having the three of us all together really like helped like sell like the sisterhood and just like how connected the family was. And so like whenever like we get to do a party all together, we're like, oh my goodness, it's the dream team.
That's awesome. And how frequently do you do parties? So it's been a while.
Well, like it's been a while since my last Encanto party, because the summer is always Moana season. Like everybody would love to see Moana over the summer. Although I think I may have a Mirabelle one lined up later on, or I think it's Encanto in general later this month. But like most of like the summer is filled with Moana bookings. but it's a lot rarer now, especially as like the hype for the movie has died down, to like have parents request all three of the sisters, or even like just like Mirabel and Isabella, or Mirabel and Luisa. But like when it's like the three of us together and stuff, like, oh my goodness, like that has just been like, that was like one of my favorite memories when I started princessing back in 2022.
That's awesome. Yeah, those look all real great. And not gonna lie, when I first saw it, I was like, it looked like she could do the live action version of this movie right there.
I mean, I just like mistaken for a younger. I actually, the other day at work, I was walking across campus and they thought I was like one of like the high schoolers, and they're like, "Good morning," and I'm like, "Morning," and then like they tried pulling me to the side and it's like, "So which class are you going to?" And I'm like, "Going to the auditorium." And then like one of my other coworkers had to be like, "She works with us at the elementary." So I know I have a good chance. But if there's like another girl that happens to like look like Mirabel and she's closer to the age, like take it to her. I definitely want to shoot my shot, but like, you know, like I've had like so much experience like being Mirabel for people at party princesses and stuff, like, you know, like I want to share the wealth. I want to spread the wealth of like being Mirabel to like other girls that also look like her.
Yeah, like that was actually a really cool one. I have another picture that I would like you to talk about.
Okay.
Let me get this going. So similar theme, just you're not Mirabel this time. Let's see this one.
Okay, so this one is another picture that I had from an event that I did, because in addition to also portraying Mirabel, I will also sub in for Isabella parties when needed. And with that one, sometimes like we'll have clients, they'll ask for like princesses or characters from different IPs together. Like even like we've had like, you know, like a giant like princess group picture where it's just like Jasmine, Cinderella, Ariel, Snow White, Anna, and Elsa. And then they'll ask for like the Encanto girls. And even like there was one party where we even had like a request for Mulan, and luckily someone was able to come in as Mulan, because like it's a really rare chance to try and like have someone request Mulan. But sometimes they'll ask for like the different characters, you know, to like work together. And, you know, thanks to like the one movie Ralph Breaks the Internet, like, you know, it kind of helped establish that like the princesses are all besties. And so like that's kind of like how we usually play it whenever we do the parties together in that sense. And what we'll usually do is that like we'll like have each of the princesses get a chance to tell their story and sing their songs and interact with kids that way. And then we'll just like kind of hand off and like, you know, like leading through the different games. We'll be like, Isabella can lead through the parachute game, and then Ariel can lead through freeze dance. And then especially when it comes to face painting, because that's personally one of my favorite things to do at a party, mainly because like before I got into acting, like part of me was like, I'm gonna do cosmetology. But then I pivoted over, and now I just have this reminder of it. But with face painting, because they'll have so many kids, it's really good to have like the two performers who both know how to face paint, do it all together, so we can try and get that cleared as much as possible, because we don't want the allotted time for a booking to just be face painting.
Yeah, for sure. And there's plenty of other things you can do than just face paint for everybody.
Exactly. Like, you know, like some kids, like they definitely want to like maybe like play more games, or maybe they want to do more singing and dancing. And then maybe sometimes, especially like I feel like sometimes kids just like they just want to like have a chance to like just like have like a Q&A with their favorite princess and be like Moana, where's your boat? Where's Hey? Where's Kua? And so like it's fun to interact with them instead of being like, I'm just a robot. It's like, no, like give them that connection.
Yeah, just make it as real as possible for them. You know, you don't want to just sit here and be like, oh, I got a couple lines that I just do all the time, and then it's kind of over.
Like
each experience is unique.
Yeah, but like one of the things I love about princessing is that like, you know, I really get to flex my improv skills, especially when kids will ask like the most random questions. I'll be like, I don't think you're the real so and so. It's like, okay, ask me a question that only so and so would know. Like for Mirabel, it's like, I don't think you're the real Mirabel. It's like, makes me think I'm not the real Mirabel. When's your birthday? March 6th. Okay, when's Isabella's birthday? July 27th. And then, like, just like answering like the questions, be like, oh wow, that makes sense. It's like, oh wow, you do know your family, you do know everything.
And where's Bruno?
Well, Bruno's no longer outside of the walls. He lives with us now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we'll continue moving on. I'm just going to continue to spam you with pictures, and we're just going to continue to talk about it.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah, let me get this next one up for you. And let's see, which one first? I'm going to go do this one. This one looks fun.
Rent. Oh my goodness. This one, there's a lot that was happening with this during this time when I was doing this show. I was going through a lot of different hardships at the time. A couple of my dogs that I had with my family back up in Victorville, they got out during a rainstorm, and unfortunately one of them did not make it. They got hit by a car, and then the other one I had to try and find a foster family for, because at the time my mom was like, she was going through a lot and she couldn't keep my husky around anymore. And so I had to try and find a foster, and then I was trying to scramble around, going around so many places to make sure that he gets his walks in. And then I also needed to earn money, because at the time I left a restaurant job that I was not happy in. It was one of the first jobs that I took out, and I was like, you know what, it's gonna bring me back out to LA, and I'm doing the party princess stuff right now. I can still make rent, still make all these different things. And I moved in with my current roommate and my best friend, but ever since I left that restaurant job, and then things were falling apart, I was really losing a lot of myself at the time. I remember specifically within the month of November, even though I was in rehearsal for a show and we were getting closer and closer to the performance dates for Rent, I found myself in bed a lot of times, and I was just thinking am I ever gonna make it? Am I really doing the right thing and stuff? But I'm really glad that the cast that I was working with at Conundrum for this show, they were so supportive and there for me, and I was able to take a lot of the grief that I had, and just basically all the sorrow that I had, and put it into the show. And I was really happy that in a way I had a found family there, and I'm really happy that Conundrum really took the chance on me to be involved with the show. And I love my Conundrum family so much. Right now they're getting ready for their performances for their production of Legally Blonde, and I'm super excited to go see them, just because it's they really have expanded and have done so many different things across Burbank and SoCal in order to just put together. And I miss them. I really do miss them. This was it was such a tough time, but I'm really glad that all these different people, they were able to help me be a stronger performer and realize that I was not alone in all this.
And I would say having that support system, whether they know they're your support system or not, just them being there is actually very important to have. Mm-hmm. And everybody is going to go through a time where they have self-doubt. They don't know if what they're doing is right. Everybody goes through it. And it's is this what I want to do with the rest of my life? Or this is getting really hard? Do I continue to struggle in this? Or did I make the right decision? Should I try to do something else? And really sitting down with yourself and with the people around you to figure out that answer is really important. Because if you have that support system, then you can do anything. You can get through it, as long as your mind is in it and your heart. You should be fine. But I'm going to continue on. You have another one. Let's see. This one is super recognizable, though. If you don't know what this is, then you've been living under a rock since 1999. But
I think I already know
it. Yeah, you should already know it. And here we go. This one I found hilarious.
Okay, so the SpongeBob SquarePants musical. This was right when the licensing was being released regionally. The California Theater over in San Bernardino, they had auditions out for this. And at the time, I was still up in Victorville with my family. And I was like planning on just like, like going between my mom's and the theater, just like going up and down the hill for this. But at the same time, right when rehearsals were starting for this, I also got that same restaurant job that I mentioned earlier. I was working at as a hostess at this one restaurant out in Culver City because my friend Shelby, she was also working there and they needed another hostess. So I was like, oh yeah, definitely, I'll take it, anything, because like I'm trying to apply for like anything that'll take me because I just wanted to be back out in LA, at least by the beginning of summer 2022. And so I took the restaurant job in April and then moved out to LA in April. But then I was still committed to this project. And so I was going back and forth between the Valley. Like I was living out in the Valley over here in Valley Village, going down to Culver City, and then driving all the way across SoCal to San Bernardino in a 3-hour commute just to make it to rehearsals on the weekends for this. And then trying to do that throughout the month. It was a lot. It was definitely a very stressful time. And I just kept on feeling like, oh my goodness. Again, that same feeling of, I did this production before I did Rent, of just like, what am I doing? Like, is this even sustainable? Is this a lot of things? Because even though this was a paid gig, I just ended up spending like most of my stipend on the gas for it. So I didn't make much money on it, but like this show really was like a full-on production down to like, costuming and makeup and choreography, specifically within this group that I was in. We were the Sardine devotees, which are basically within the show of the SpongeBob SquarePants musical. These sardines are like, oh my goodness, Patrick's a god. We love him. We worship you. And stuff. And we kind of made it a whole like the missionaries from the Book of Mormon. And within this, it was such a high praise dance number because like Patrick's song, he has 2 songs in this. This one's like an Elton John parody, and the other one is like a gospel number. And then the gospel number, we're like moving so much, and I just felt, because like I was so worn out and so tired and stuff, that like I was just like, I can't do this. But then our choreographer, Malcolm Leon, he pulled me to the side and he was like, I need you to step up your game. Show me that you know the choreography. Show me that you can keep up, or else I'm cutting you for the number. And I got so scared. I like, especially when I heard that like in the middle of tech, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like this is like my one shot to prove that I can dance and I can keep up in these numbers. And again, that's that imposter syndrome of like other people that like I know they've been doing theater for such a long time, and like I'm just like getting into it as an adult, and I'm like, can I do this? And I just like, I even like remember I went to the gym like just for a little bit for the goal lift and like burn off my steam, and then I came back, and then with our assistant choreographer, I took time to like work with her on the number and like, get it up to tempo and stuff. And she was like, you got it. Don't sweat it. I know you got it. And then towards the end, like I still have the notes that they gave me on that. It was like, I'm so glad that like, and you did it, and that you were able to like push yourself and show that like you were able to like be in this number. And they knew that I had it in me. I wasn't like, I'm really glad that they were on my team and they were like, I want you to succeed. Like they weren't saying these things to like be mean or be like, oh no, you're not cut out for this. It was more of like, I know you are. Show me that you can be up on that stage with everyone else.
Yeah, because at that time, I feel like another question I would have, I guess it would segue to another question, is like your approach to when that show is about to start and that whole practicing and stuff. Because you mentioned it, like, hey, you don't step up, you're gonna get cut. Like,
yeah,
but I played a lot of sports. Yeah, and I play a lot of sports, and if I couldn't perform on the field, I was not going to get a lot of playing time. So I had to make sure that I was stepping up my game as well, because you only get that one shot. You ain't going to be playing too much, and you want to play. And I feel like it's the same way. It's like I want to be in this spot. I want to sit here and perform like everybody else, but
exactly. It's like, especially like when it comes to theater and performing and stuff like there's so many people that want to do it, and there's only so many people that can get the chance to be in like the productions because you can't cast everyone. And so like I, like whenever I get cast in a show, I know that like, like I'm there for a reason now. And I don't really squander it, like especially like, like, even if it's like not as heavy of a movement show, especially when I did Braid, it's like there's so much like historical context that goes into this. I did my research and I was like laying everything out, and like I was on top of it and just like keeping track of everything that was needed for that show. Or even like especially with SpongeBob, was like how much dancing there was. It was such a fun show, but definitely like the most dance intensive show that I have done ever, or like so far. And I'm really glad that like each of these different productions have given me different chances to flex different parts of me as a performer, not just as an actor, but also as a dancer, and just like, and as a storyteller too. It's like, what am I doing here? What parts of me do I have to utilize in order to serve the story forward? Are you ready?
All right. So, one question. I'm gonna hit you with some quick questions before we finish and close this up. First one. Story. It's about to be. Curtains are about to go up. You got a couple hours before the show starts. How do you prep yourself to get ready for a show? Like, what do you eat? What do you drink? Do you have a routine? How do you go about that?
So for me, before going into a show, I will usually try and get a workout in like early in the day, just so like I can get like my body set for that. Most people are like, I'm going to go ahead and sleep. I definitely feel like I need to like go ahead and like start moving my body, so that way I'm ready for like more of that movement later in the day. So that way I don't have to be like, oh my goodness, I feel this in the back ass. So like I'll get that workout in, make sure I prioritize my protein and my hydration. And usually because of like where I'm doing shows, I'll find myself like driving over to the venue, driving over to where we're rehearsing before we go over to the venue. And I'll take that time to just kind of like put on like this one playlist that I have. It's a bunch of like pop playlists, but it's like easy to sing pop playlists and stuff. So that way I can get my voice warmed up. So like, for example, like Cruel Summer from Taylor Swift. I'm drunk in the back of the car. Because if Taylor's able to like do that on the Eras tour for 3.5 hours, I should be able to do that. I'm holding myself to that same standard. If Beyonce's able to go on for the Renaissance tour, also 3 hours, I'm keeping myself to that standard. So like I'll find myself singing along to like, like songs that like are comfortable enough to like sing, but like are also like challenging. So that way I'm prepped for the show. Yeah. And then once I'm there at the theater, sometimes I'll like get something quick to eat, but like most of the time, like I'll bring something that I prep with me, because I do my best to not eat out as much. Like I really, especially because like since I do like lifting and I like going to the gym, I will do my best to bring whatever I have at home, or like bring the food that I have already prepped, and make sure I bring my protein shake. So I will bring that with me. I'll get into the theater, and then I'll check in with our stage manager, do all these things. And especially like when we're in the dressing room, I'll kind of like put in like one headphone, and I'll kind of just use that as a chance to go ahead and put on like some meditation music, or maybe like a soft, quiet ASMR thing to kind of get me into like the groove of like everything for the show. And as I'm like doing my makeup, that's one of the things that I really love about like, as like a performer, regardless of gender, is like when you're putting on your makeup, you're putting on like your war paint, and you're kind of like you're helping yourself transform. And as you're like putting on all the different pieces, you kind of feel yourself getting into the character, and you're like, okay, you're putting on the whole coat. Or actually, let me use this mic in front of me, or it's just like as you're putting everything on, you're just like, okay, I'm ready.
Like Dilcia's no more. I am what remains. That's awesome. Yeah, my similar thing when I was getting ready for sports. Different though. I was weird. I did not eat before my games though. Like most of that day, I barely ate anything, because if I did, I would just feel sick.
Yeah. I need to eat. If I don't eat, then like I will get lightheaded, because of just like how much energy you spend during the show, and it's just like for me, I know I need to fuel my body. And I would rather like be like, okay, we're good, cool, instead of like trying to like starve myself throughout the entire show and just find myself instead of like being in like the scene or being like in like the moment, instead of being like, oh, I can't wait to go to In-N-Out later,
Yeah. All right. Now, last thing before we go, any words of encouragement or advice for people who would like to get into theater acting or even just cosplay or anything in general like that? You would have any tips, hints, anything like that for them?
I say in general, this kind of goes for both theater and for cosplay. Honestly, just go for it. If you see an audition or if you see a convention coming up and you're like, oh, you know what, I really want to like test out like this one cosplay and stuff, I would just say buy the ticket and go for it. Or like, go out and do the audition. Who knows? Maybe you will end up getting into callbacks and then you will get seen and these people will be like, you know what, we have room for this person in the show. Just kind of like, in a way, the best way I can describe it is that you want to kind of present yourself as like, hey, these are the different tools that I have. And, people will find a way to like fit you in, even if they're like, if you think that the show's like way out of like what you're capable of doing and stuff. I say just go for it. Because the more times that you put yourself out there, the more times you get seen, these people remember you and stuff. And then be like, okay, hey, so like I remember them. They auditioned for the show this time. We couldn't cast them this time, but I think they might be a better fit for this. And because you remembered them, that's like super important. And it's the same thing too with cosplay. Like I know, especially for D23 when we did the Pirate Princesses, like there's so many different friends that I made just from working on that one cosplay group. And I'm definitely going to do my best to try and be there again this year. Although tickets were really difficult to get this time around. But I really want to be there because they're planning another group that I will not reveal because it's a surprise. Okay. But I really just want to be there, and I just really want to have like that sense of community, especially like post-pandemic, especially as like we're, trying to like get our way back to normal and stuff. Like finding those connections and finding those people around. If you can have them, just grab them and run with them. Like putting yourself out there is one of the best things that you can do. If I did not put myself out there back in 2021, 2022, started auditioning more, doing more projects, even if they were just like small measly things, or even just like going to a friend's birthday party, who knows, your life might be completely different. And you'll never know unless you put yourself out there.
Yeah. No, I agree. And that's sound advice. I'm the type of person, and that's my family and friends, I just kind of do things. That's how I actually kind of started this. I was like, you know what, let me just give it a shot. Whatever happens, happens. I'm not going to put too much pressure on myself. But, at least I could say I did it. I tried it. And another thing I would add to this, just don't be afraid of rejection. You're not perfect. Things happen, but just go out there, do your best, and don't have too big of an ego that some like things are too big or too small for you. If you don't have that mindset, I feel like that you should be fine.
Yeah.
But
I know rejection was definitely like a bigger thing for me to like deal with, because I definitely dealt with like being a people pleaser, making sure that I was like the perfect Latin daughter growing up and stuff. Like I had to realize as I got older, like it's okay to make mistakes. And I even like I remind my kiddos of that too. And so it's just like especially if they're working on like this one project or like they're working on this one math problem and you're like, oh no, I got it wrong. Hey, it's okay that we made mistakes. I'm just gonna learn from that. We're gonna make a better decision next time. Or I wouldn't say better decision, like make another decision next time.
Yeah. And yeah, you're totally right. Well, I would say it was a pleasure having you on. I enjoyed our conversation. People may not know, but this is the first time we actually talked to each other since you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it feels like, well, then again, like I know like Danny's like told me so much about you, but it's just like, like I really trust like the friends that he has made and the people that he is around and stuff. And they just like, everyone within his circle has made me feel very welcome. And it's like, in a way, like all the circles are like combining together. We're just like a bunch of like different Venn diagrams.
Yep. You're totally right. And I will say, definitely be having either you, him, or my sister back on at some point. Maybe all together, maybe individually again, but we'll see what I come up with. Yeah, definitely is fun. Just having the conversation, just picking each other's brain and building these friendships and these special podcast bonds. But no, thank you for everybody who watched to the very end. If you haven't seen, my little Instagram tag is over here, Nacho Jedi 66. Hers is over there. It looks like it says Dilcia.
It's Dilcia, period, lowerface, period, Guzman, because it's supposed to look like the face.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely need to update that. But like, that's currently my username for my Instagram. If you want to follow me on TikTok, it's going to be Dilcia Guzman Official. As I may or may not be working on another cosplay that I will be presenting later on. Just a work in progress.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and I appreciate you being on.
Awesome.
Till next time.
Till next.